Economists are raising alarms after yesterday's brutal jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It was the first report since President Trump fired the agency's leader after the previous monthly report, which the president didn't like and said was inaccurate. The new report indicates that the labor market added just 22,000 jobs last month, far fewer than the expected 75,000. The unemployment rate increased a fraction to 4.3%, the highest since late 2021. And on top of it all, June's employment data was revised to show that instead of a small gain in jobs that month, there was actually a loss. President Trump is blaming interest rates for the disappointing report and is ramping up attacks on his favorite target, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The president and his administration are claiming that economic data will get better next year. Here's what President Trump had to say before the release of Friday's report during a meeting of tech CEOs.
The real numbers that I'm talking about are going to be whatever it is, but will be in a year from now when these monstrous, huge, beautiful places, they're palaces of genius. And when they start opening up, you're seeing, I think you'll see job numbers that are going to be absolutely incredible.
Joining us now is former Treasury Department Deputy Assistant Secretary Natasha Sarin, law professor and president and co-founder of the Budget Lab at Yale. And back with us is former Democratic Congressman Max Rose of New York. Natasha, I want to go to you. You are deep in these numbers at your Budget Lab at Yale. Can you provide a bit of a fact check? Is Trump right that these numbers are going to go up over the next year and that actually these are positive indicators and not negative indicators? What are we seeing here?
So it's kind of impossible to predict what's going to happen over the course of the next year. But I will say that what we've seen happen so far over the course of the last few months is like exactly consistent with what you would expect from launching the type of trade war that Trump has launched. Because if you look at our estimates at the Budget Lab at Yale, what we're essentially trying to do is in real time, we're trying to track, okay, these tariff rates are changing pretty dramatically. What are we seeing in the economy? And what we've estimated is that as a result of tariffs that are currently at about 18%, when President Trump walked in, they were about 2.5%. So that is a very large increase in the effective tariff rate. You are going to see economic growth contract, and you are going to see about 500,000 fewer jobs in the economy. And that's what you are starting to see over the course of the last many months.
I want to play some sound, Congressman, of Howard Lutnick, this is the Commerce Secretary, predicting better job number accuracy. But it's a little twist. Let's listen.
So what I'm asking is today, when we see those numbers, whether we should believe they're accurate.
I think they'll get better because you'll take out the people who are just trying to create noise against the president. Take out the people trying to create noise. Let's get the accurate numbers because this is going to be the greatest growth economy, right?
Now, the twist is this was an hour before the numbers came out, right? And so I didn't see him say anything since then. But an hour before the numbers come out, he says that these numbers are going to be great. So it seems like the administration is accepting that these numbers that aren't great are true. And also even in what President Trump was saying to those tech CEOs, he said, you're going to see numbers that are great. Right. So even he's kind of accepting the truth and the veracity of the numbers, maybe? Am I crazy?
Lutnick always sounds like he's selling a used car, you know? I swear the muffler is
it's
great. It just sounds
the carburetor.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, in the end, the story of all of this is very simple. Donald Trump needed to figure out a way to pay for a excessive tax cut for the wealthiest amongst us, and in doing so, put in an unconstitutional regressive consumption tax on working people. In the process, he is totally destroying our economy for the majority of people. And what does that destruction look like? It means it's harder to get a job. And that's undeniable right now, just anecdotally. I'm not a fancy economist, but I hear from my friends. I hear from people on the street. It is harder to find a job. And as a result, people are scared out of their minds. That cultural shift in this country is absolutely undeniable. It doesn't matter what type of blindly sycophantic apparatchik he puts in place to change the stats in the future.
Yeah, because for the first time since 2021, we now have more people looking for jobs than there are jobs, which seems like a concerning statistic to me.
And there are like a couple of pieces of that are super important. So one is that actually it is harder to find a job at the moment. It's actually not that we're seeing a lot of firings in the economy. It's that you're seeing a lot of stagnation. People aren't hiring. And it's also, again, what you would expect in an environment where businesses have no idea what the tariff landscape is that they're going to be operating under. So how do they decide who do I want to hire or where do I want to invest? The unemployment rate for young people is about 10.6% right now. That is the highest it's been in the last decade at any moment absent the pandemic. The unemployment rate for African Americans is taking up very substantially. And why we're worried about those things, obviously we're worried about people being able to find jobs, but those are also tend to be leading indicators of when we're likely to see pretty dramatic downturns in the economy. Right. And it's coming at a time when we've done the most inflationary policies of our lifetimes with these tariffs. And so people are going to see higher prices at the grocery store for goods that they're trying to buy.
Yeah. Well, Natasha, I want to stay on that. What do you attribute to people also just dropping out of the labor place altogether? I mean, and how do you square that with Trump's immigration and deportation policies? I think this is also a big question that people have a lot of different takes on.
It's so important because in some sense, you are not going to see jobs numbers that are at what are like 150,000 jobs added this month, 200,000 jobs added this month, at a moment when labor supply is shrinking so dramatically because you're not having this influx of immigration. And that matters not just for these jobs numbers, but it actually matters for the state of the economy, because a lot of what we think is going to make the economy productive over the course of the next 10 years, if you look at estimates from people like the Congressional Budget Office, is they're assuming a steady influx of immigration. But what the administration is doing is sort of massively disruptive with tariffs, but also massively disruptive with labor supply by constricting that type of immigration. And frankly, like they keep talking about Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve can't invent labor supply. It cannot produce people and bring in more immigrants into this country. That's something that only the Trump administration can do.
You know, one of the things that seems like and this is from New York Times, the weak jobs report strengthens case for rate cuts, as we saw the Fed saying, you know, maybe in September we're going to cut rates, not because things are great and rosy. That's not why you cut rates, Max. That's not typically how this operates. But now we may get one because the economy is worse off. So Trump may get what he wants, but not for the reasons
Right, is he so utterly stubborn that he's going to purposely drive the economy into the ground just to get lower rate cuts? In the end, what we're seeing happening between these deployments of the National Guard, which are patently unconstitutional, to his attack on the Fed, is a man who is not comfortable with the powers that are constitutionally granted to the President of the United States. He wants to be an authoritarian king. That is the common philosophical thread amongst all of this. In the end, you hit the nail on the head. The tools are at his disposal to grow our economy, but he doesn't want that. He wants the easy political button to tweet at other people. He doesn't want to do the hard work himself.